I'm joined by my co-host,
Santi Hernandez.
And on today's show, we have our very special guest, Ismael Lara. We're really excited to have you back on the show with us, Ismael. Your new album has just dropped. Thank you for being on the show with us today. How are you doing? Do you want to just introduce yourself to everyone?
Yeah, I'm just grateful to be here with y'all. I've been up here maybe twice before that. First time as an artist, though. And so that feels good. I was really excited making the drive up this way to the North Bay and getting to see y'all.
And you're going now by Evolving Wings, right?
Yeah, I made the transition. I felt like, utilizing my real name for my EP was cool.
Mm-hmm.
But I have another idea for that name that I'll share at another time. So I was like, you know what? Let's make the transition and make this claim into the universe, as far as being an artist. And that's that. With this album, I've arrived.
Great. Yeah, I think with every this is so Soul Purpose is the name of your new album, and that's what we're going to be talking about today on the show. Is just your process, your creative process, the challenges, everything leading up to an album like this, because it's a big deal. You know what I mean? Making an album is not easy.
It's not
easy, and we'll get into that. But before we really delve in, I just wanted to ask you both. Quick little icebreaker question is, where do you guys plan or have plans to travel to outside of the U.S. right now for a vacation spot? Or what's your kind of like your dream vacation spot? Maybe for this new year that's coming up.
For this year coming up, I'm planning to go back home in Guatemala. I haven't been there about 3 years, a little bit more. I'm starting to miss home, which is funny because I am home, but I'm going home to go home.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say just going back and like kind of, it's a great reset for me every time I go home, because sometimes we can get lost in our day-to-day things here that you forget what is out there. So going back home always grounds me, and so I feel like I need that right now. So yeah.
I feel that. I hear that. Me and my wife are pretty much like anything with a beach. You know what I'm saying?
Anything with a beach. Okay.
Water. We love being in the water. I think that I don't know about a dream vacation right now, because there's so much I want to see just in Latin America. Like I want to go to Machu Picchu. I want to go to. There's like so many different regions and states within Mexico that I've never visited. I've never been to Mazatlan. So those are just a few.
Yeah. That's great. I mean, I agree with both of you guys. Latin America is just very beautiful, and there's so much to see over there. I just recently got back from a trip from Mexico City and the state of Mexico, and it was, again, like you were saying, Santi, it was a good way for me to just kind of like refresh my brain and just kind of like settle down and be like somewhere that's just not the U.S. And I really needed it. It really helped me reconnect with my roots, reconnect with my family that I hadn't seen in years, and I was really happy about that. And I think what I plan to do is for next year is definitely go back, but I also really want to go to Oaxaca. I've heard really, really good things about Oaxaca.
Same.
And I really love that kind of mountain region, kind of more mountainy, foresty areas in general. I'm more of like that kind of person, like hikes and trails, than I am more of a beach person. So that's why I really have a lot of interest in potentially going to Oaxaca, hopefully soon. So
that sounds good.
Yeah. But thank you guys for sharing. But delving right in. So I just wanted to start things off, Ismael, with asking you, so how long did this album, or when did you start working on Soul Purpose?
On this album easily took over 2 years. And it's funny enough that you asked that, because I was sitting down with my wife the other day, and she's like, hey, look at this video I found. And it's of me rapping, and my oldest boy, who's going to be 8 pretty soon in 2 weeks on the 31st, he must have been like maybe 1.
Wow.
Or something like that, or 2. But I think the date on the video was 2017, and I'm bringing them up because that's the first verse to Passion and Purpose. So that first verse goes back at least to 2017.
That's a long time. 2017 is when I graduated high school.
And so that's what I'm saying, is that as far as like production and recording, it's been over 2 years easy. But some of those verses and lyrics go back to at least 2017.
Wow. Did you want to add, Santi?
No, that's amazing. And usually as a listener or a viewer, it's easy for us to think, oh, they did that really quick.
Oh, no.
But it takes time of like there's behind the scenes of behind the scenes of behind the scenes.
There really is, because for me, first and foremost, I got to give a big shout out to my brother, the Kid Rated R, who produced Soul Purpose from beginning to end. And he's an amazing rapper and he's an amazing producer. He produced the whole album and he's a feature on Summer in the City. He has a very, very fire verse on that song there. And so when I met him, it's been over 2 years, and it was kind of like, okay, here's a beat, pick one, blah, blah, blah. And I picked one. I was like, I like this one. And the first song we actually worked on together was What Matters Most. That was the very first song.
That was the first song, okay.
And it was just so frustrating because I just feel like I couldn't get it right. That song took forever to record, and now it's one of my favorites easily.
Yeah, and I think what people need to understand too is that when creating an album, it's so important to have such a good working relationship with your producer, with your engineer, because like you said, Santi, people assume when they listen to a song, it's like, oh yeah, they finished this in like a day or something, but it's sometimes what happens, right? Is because I've been recording a lot of artists here in this studio this year, and I've been helping some artists just get an EP started and everything, and it's just so much, like as in like ideas change, like while we're recording, while we're doing something, they're like, you know what, I actually don't like this lyric, or actually want to change this part completely. It's like
that's a big part of the process. I mean, and sometimes, not sometimes, you always got to trust your gut, and sometimes you just got to have faith. And I think the Kid Rated R was the recording engineer and the producer. And so we did everything in his studio for the most part. There was like an interlude or two that I recorded in my studio at home. But for the most part, everything was done in his studio. And so you're absolutely right. Like, that's the way it plays out. It's kind of like, well, try this, try that. Or move this word here, move that word here. And that's all a part of the process. And sometimes it could be easy to get frustrated. You're not hitting the note the way you want to hit it. It's not hitting the pocket like you want to hit it. And so you got to just take a deep breath and step out the booth maybe and come back in. And it's all about energy and intent, because I noticed that if I recorded frustrated, the frequency.
Oh yeah, you could hear it in your voice.
You could hear it in the voice, and it's like, oh no, we got to do that again. And so many a times what was cool is that I would get a draft to go home. I listen to the draft. I figure out, okay, how can I make it better? How can I be ready for next time?
Yeah, that's true. Did you want to add, Santi?
No, I'm just amazed because, like I said, you really don't know what's behind. For example, I really liked, I'm looking at the list because I'm horrible with names. The Warrior in You. That was one I really connected with the lyrics. And, but, again, as a listener, you really enjoy the music, the lyrics, but you don't really understand how many tries you had to, or how many retakes you've had to do, and what you changed, what you didn't like. I want to know a little bit more about how you got prepared to go to the studio. And because I'm at least I get frustrated with things that it's not coming out my way, and I have it in my head, it's not coming out my way. How do you?
That's real.
Yeah, how do you handle that, and what's the mindset that you go, in the studio to prepare yourself?
Yeah, from beginning to end, the making of this album was a life lesson, meaning that I had an expectation in the beginning once again. And so when it wasn't meeting that expectation, I was frustrated. And so I had to realign myself. And so much of what I'm saying is conceptually and in the songs, how I elaborate on realignment with the spirit. And so at 41, before I walk out the house, I got to stretch. That's number one. I got to stretch. I have IBS. And so I mentioned that in that song, I believe. Or no, I mentioned that in the mental health one. But
What is IBS? Sorry.
irregular bowel syndrome.
What is
So
that?
I have a stomach issue. And it could be different variations for different people.
Okay.
But my digestion and my stomach, I can't have certain foods. I can't have oily, greasy foods. I can't have gluten, no coffee, no caffeine, no milk, no dairy, things like that. And so that could really trigger my IBS in my stomach. And then that could probably trigger my anxiety as well.
Yeah.
And so my doctor told me that, the second brain is actually the stomach, all the nerves there. And so she was like, you're unfortunately in this really bad combination to where if you don't eat right, it's going to trigger not just your stomach, but it's going to impact your anxiety. And so I have to eat very quote unquote clean, and I could define that, what that means for me, right? But I don't eat red meat for a long time. So you said the warrior in you, right?
Yeah, the warrior in you.
I'll talk about this a little bit later. Maybe we could transition in a second. But the process was stretch, drink a lot of tea, take tea to the studio,
Yeah.
take manzanilla tea specifically. I like it with a lot of honey, and praying. I had to pray before I left. When I would get into the booth, I try to just clear my mind, and I would say, I am grateful. I am grateful. I am grateful 3 times, just to ground myself that it may not come out perfect, but I'm grateful for the opportunity to just be here. With in my eyes, one of the best producers. And so that was the process going forward. That was the lesson that I had to learn, within the friction and the anger and the frustration of why can't I just do this right? And so the album is really conceptually about all my failures. That's what Eulogy is about, the first song.
So speaking of the album, one of the themes being failure, what was your overall vision for this album? Because I think that's another aspect, right? Is kind of going into an album is already having a vision in mind.
Definitely.
What is that vision? What are the themes? Because you do touch on a lot, but I
the way I wrote it was like a memoir, autobiography, and a testament, and almost even a research essay. It's very layered if people really listen to the album. And so, and I'll probably touch on this later when we get to mental health exercise, is that when I had my first mental health crisis in 2021, I was non-functioning for 3 days at least.
Yeah.
What I mean by non-functioning is I had to remind myself how to breathe. And I was literally at my desk trying to keep my mind occupied and just tell myself, I have to breathe, I have to breathe. Tapping my foot, tapping my foot, tapping my foot. Listening to songs that made me feel good, watching movies that made me feel good. I had to figure out what works for me, whether that's just being quiet, being silent, or whether that's meditating, whatever how I define that for me, going for a walk. And once again, I didn't know I had this IBS at the time. And so everything I was eating, that I was used to eating, was making me sick.
Yeah. It wasn't helping.
And so it wasn't helping. At one point, I did group therapy for depression. And they were like, yeah, maybe you should be on antidepressants. You should be on Lexapro. So I get on Lexapro. And then after a few months, I'm like, all respect to people that take Lexapro. I just feel like I don't want to do this. I don't want to do it, and I don't feel like me. And I did the worst thing you could possibly do. The first thing they tell you to do, not to do. I just cut it off. You're not supposed to do that.
Why not?
Because they give you a certain amount that they have to increase into to help you become functioning. So therefore, you have to have the same exit plan. You have to take less and less and less and less and less to get off of it. I just stopped taking it.
Oh.
And for the next 2 weeks, it was, as you can imagine, a roller coaster.
Yeah, withdrawals, right?
Of emotion.
Yeah.
But after that, I think that I was reading The Alchemist. Read it for the first time with my wife. And the whole book's about purpose. And I was like, well, what's my purpose? what's in my soul? And I was like, oh, you know what? And I was staying up a lot, watching different films, reading different books. And I was like, you know what? I like that soul purpose. I like that concept. That's going to be the concept of this new project. And that's how I got the title, the concept. And the whole purpose of the film and the book, in my perspective, is that you don't have to travel from here to like, you know, across the world to figure out who you are or what your purpose is. Your purpose is whatever you want it to be. Mm-hmm. Right? We don't need to seek no one else's approval. Yeah, and sometimes we doubt the beauty and the brilliance is within ourselves. So that's how I got the concept of the album, in a sense of like, yeah, I failed and I will continue to fail, but guess what? I'm going to have lessons and jewels from this failure. So it's not really failure. These are lessons. Nevertheless, it's a caveat. They're only lessons if I learn from them, if I utilize them and share them with people. And I think that's one of the strengths of the album is I'm being completely vulnerable with people I don't know.
Absolutely. That's what I was hearing throughout. I mean, you can hear it. Again, your flow, the way you highlight your words, they just stick out to me as just so raw and honest. I don't know if you felt like that too when you were listening to it, and encouraging as well. Like just again, I know this is one of the many themes, but what I've realized throughout the album is that you've kind of come to let people know, hey, it's okay to feel this way. It's okay to have these feelings. Look at me. I've been through it too, you know? So it's just like things like that really help, again, fight that, the negative connotations that people have towards mental health.
The stigmas, right?
The stigmas, exactly.
And that's why I utilized the interview you had with me after my Destigmatizing Mental Health and the Latino Theater Community event at COM. That was the perfect interlude to set up the Warrior in You.
That surprised me. I was going to bring that up later in the show, but yes, I'm on the album. That was the one thing that surprised me. I'm on the album.
It just makes sense. So like the other thing was like the whole album is cinematic. The whole album is like a movie. And that once again, I was watching a lot of movies, different types of movies, historical movies, sci-fi movies, all kinds of movies. I was just staying up, making notes, writing raps. There's like Magic the Gathering references in some of the songs. There's like Lord of the Rings references. There's like the Alchemist references. The book, I read The Secret and I read Think and Grow Rich. And those are literatures and books on how to manifest affirmations. And so that's another layer of the whole album, is that I'm not saying I created this. What I'm saying is this is how I've utilized it and what has helped me attain a balance to realign my spirit. Because to keep it real, this is my gift to Creator, is this album. And in doing so, it's a gift to everyone and myself, because I wrote these songs to remind myself that I am great. That no matter what's in my past or the failures that I've, gone through, and the people that have ridiculed me at every level, is that, you know what? People that really love me will never make fun of me or ridicule me. People that love me will encourage me to know that I am great, and it's just a matter of time. And so, honestly, for me personally, this album is a reminder, a note to self. On when I may be feeling a little anxiety, a little depressed, I press play and like, you know what? I am great. I can do this. I will do this. I am.
And I think a lot of other people have felt that too, because I've seen from people that have been reposting your album, a lot of them were listening to them during their finals. I saw that.
Yes.
And when they're working out as well, like,
oh yeah, the love is real.
It's been really cool to see that, because again, when I hear this, it's just like, this is one of those albums you can just pop in whenever you're doing something productive. Like, I feel very productive when I hear this album.
I appreciate that.
And I think a lot of it too is not your lyricism, and the production just goes so hand in hand in this album.
Yes.
Like the production here is like on a whole other step from your EP, I would say. And that's a great thing. I love seeing that, hearing that evolution. Especially again, the more confidence, the more punch that every song has, I think now has been it's just been awesome to hear, and you really hear it from right from the top. But yeah, did you want to add?
Yeah, you said so many things, and I'll see where I am gonna talk and put them in. But today, I feel, and one of the reasons why I have this love-hate relationship with music is because nowadays I feel like artists are more doing it because they have to, not because they want to. And
Money driven.
Yeah. And it's, or other people are telling them what to do, and it might not be what they want to do. But finding artists who are authentic and turning what they've gone through into art is the most authentic music that I like to listen to, because their lyrics are on another level. You can connect to them in a deeper level. And so, which is what I shared with Javier, it's I was very curious why the album was Sole Purpose, but you explaining it now, how you're right. We don't need to travel to far places to find out what our sole purpose is.
Yeah.
We can find that where we are, as long as we really look and see what, look at our what would I say? Look at our, kind of what we do. We tend to not give ourselves enough credit, or we base everything on other people's opinions. And when we do that, we don't live. We don't live at all.
That's it.
Yeah. So, and then listening to the album, I've listened to it while I was working out, because it's the only place where my brain can concentrate and really kind of like fall into the lyrics. And you mentioned a lot about mental health, about your surrounding, and you mentioned Think and Grow Rich. Now that you mentioned that, I can kind of picture a lot. I've read that book too, and manifesting, and that's kind of what I got so much from this, and it is very, very personal, I would say. I really see now what you meant by the movie, because I heard Javier, but I also heard your kids, right? Your kids are in there?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I thought it was so beautiful how there's an explanation. And maybe that's why I really liked Warrior, because the Warrior in You, because Javier asked you a question and you answered it, and then the song came in. And I listened to the album, just going down, but I can see now how you kind of intentionally put things the way they are for as a reminder, like you said, but even for people who are not you, can really connect with all like different songs in the album, for sure.
I took a gamble because we are in an era where most folks will not listen to the whole album.
Oh, that's
Agreed.
very true.
Agreed.
And this is a pretty good length album for a debut. 45 minutes. That's a pretty dang good length.
It's and though me and the Kid Radar were in the studio, we're like, we gotta take it back to like the golden era of hip hop, and so that was the feel. He took the pictures for the cover art, and Jordan Wall. Big shout out to my homie Jordan Wall, who has been a director of all my music videos. He did Sole Purpose featuring Boca Floja, and Jordan Siu, he's the one who did put the cover art together based on the Kid Radar's pictures. And so those steps mean a lot, because I grew up on those steps. It's my uncle's house in the Mission.
Oh,
and those are all my kids on the steps.
Yeah.
And so the other aspect that I really want to hit home here is that I took a gamble on the track list, and this is why. Because I feel that people that want to tune in, that really like me and or what I'm going to say, or they're hearing about it, it's a movie. And so I put maybe what a lot of fans, their favorites are towards the end of the album. But I did that intentionally, because it conceptualizes my breakdown, where things start feeling shaky, and then it comes to a halt, a breakdown, and I have to rebuild myself up. And that's why Sole Purpose is the last song, and then it's the outro. Because it's kind of like the climax of like, you know what? We made it through. We got through. And so I had to think about it that way, in the sense of the people that are really going to rock with me, they're going to give the album a whole chance, a whole listen, and then it's going to be an experience. And then with some of these references we're breaking down, they might go back and, you know what, that word did stand out to me. Now it makes more sense. And so, and the way that being a professor informs my music is that I use those principles of history, of ethnic studies, of gente, and put it in the album. And what I mean by that is oftentimes, well, if we don't have a certain knowledge of a history, then it may go over our heads. But once we have it, the knowledge, then it becomes highlighted.
Absolutely. And speaking of you being a professor, that's the other thing that blows my mind is that you, in the process of creating this album, you were also teaching classes.
Yeah.
And you have 3 kids that are on the cover of the album. You know, being a father to 3 kids and doing classes.
And a husband.
And a husband.
You know what I'm
so
saying?
how do you, I mean...
Well, first and foremost, you know, I got to give a huge shout out to my beautiful wife, Jackie, because without her support, I can't do this. Right. And for me, this ain't extra. This is a dream that I didn't know was possible. Like, even as we're here right now, and within the last 2 weeks, I've been thinking, like, how do I make that my life every day and able to pay rent off of that, live off of that, right? And so my wife, Jackie, has just been super supportive through my whole mental health breakdown during the pandemic. So this comes all back to the pandemic as well. I had my own cancer scare like in 2021 as well. So there was a lot going on in my personal life.
Yeah.
And so I think that my children, my wife, there's a specific personality and element to each of them that's in the album. I wanted my wife to be on the front cover too. She's very private. She was like, nah, just to have the kids and you. And we took like 100 shots that day.
Really?
And I was like, I was frustrated. I was like, man, I can't get them all to like smile the same way at the same time. At the end of the day, my homie, the kid radar was just like, nah, it looks better. This looks better. It captures their personality. And that's how we picked the shot. It's just being authentic, being real. You know, there is no perfect. It's just what it is. And there's beauty in that. Like, and I think for me, that's what caused a lot of anxiety. It's like, oh, I got to be perfect because I'm a professor. You know, I got to have this. I got to have, you know what? I'm a human being. And just like everybody else, I got my ups and downs. And you know what? When I started to embrace that, I started to feel happier.
Yeah, I also wanted to touch on, and thank you for sharing it. It's that part where there's so many professors and everybody teaches very differently. But something that I found very unique about you is every student that I talk to that have had you.
Oh yeah.
They always have good things to say.
Absolutely.
That you have this authenticity of showing the truth of even if it's bad, but saying, hey, this is the reality, but it's okay. This is, you know, we have to acknowledge this. But also the fact that you're telling your students, hey, you know, dream big, do something, and don't let anybody stop you from, but you're also doing it. I think that's the very, very like 1% that people or professors do, is that they can encourage their students, which is great, but sometimes it's hard for them to encourage themselves. So with the album, I see that you are actually practicing what you say, and that is so important. So if, you know, I've never had or taken your class, but if I were a student, I would be like, if he's telling me this and I see that he's, you know, he's not perfect, but he's still doing what he's saying, that has so much worth in what you say.
As an educator too,
Yeah,
it's good to hear all this feedback, because again, like Santi has been saying, a lot of the people that I know are surprised when they're like, oh yeah, he's the one that's rapping. Like, you know, it's like, that's my professor, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, it's so cool because I always say this, but like, I feel like you're just like honorary Marin County resident, because like so many people know who you are because of College of Marin and the classes that you teach there. Like so many people that I went to high school with are like, oh yeah, Professor Lara is so cool. He's so like open-minded, and he just like is such a great teacher. You know, I love being in his classes. So again, props to you for, you know, being able to be such a great educator and delivering such a quality product at the same time. Because like I said, that stuff isn't easy to do. It's not. But like you said, it also takes a team. It takes your loved ones, you know, to really help you really balance things out and really be able to do all of that, right?
Definitely.
It takes a team. So
I have a question.
yeah, go for it.
You mentioned that, being a professor was something that made you say, I need this album to be perfect. And I think a lot of us have something like that. Even to myself, I'm very perfectionist with the work that I do, and I can show Javier and he's like, what are you talking about? This looks amazing. But I'm so hard on myself. What do you do during those moments? Is there any meditation, or what's your way of shutting those voices out? Because it's something that if you don't know how to control, it can really dominate you.
It does. I mean, and once again, I've made those same mistakes. So it's more about telling you the reflection part, right? Is that you work as hard as you can and you prep as hard as you can, and then you just have to have faith, because we got a few versions of the mastering, and I just wasn't used to hearing it that way. And I was like, nah, the first version it just doesn't talk to my spirit. And then the second one was like, nah. And then I heard the third one. I was like, nah. And then I was driving back from LA to the Bay, and I was like, you know what? Man, I'm tripping. That second version is it.
Yeah.
That's the one.
Yeah.
What am I talking
Yeah.
about? And it was kind of like, le tienes que dar tiempo al tiempo, because I just needed to just really marinate on it. I had heard the music for so long a certain way before it got mixed. It got mixed, then it got mastered. And so there's elements that become highlighted and whatnot. And so I would just say is that once you did all you can, you just got to have, at some point, make a decision and have faith.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally. All right. So thank you for sharing again the creative process, the challenges that have come with creating the album. I want to move forward and just start going over each track, because there is a total of 16 tracks on Soul Purpose. So yeah, I just want to give you a chance to highlight each of these songs, because again, I know that you worked so hard on these, and I want to have them be able to get the highlight that they deserve.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, starting things off. So, when you first listen to the album, we actually just hear your voice. So track 1 is Eulogy. Would you like to talk about how...
Yeah, that was a tough one.
Purpose of that, yeah.
Because I got in the booth, and the kid was like, go for it. I get out the booth, he's like, oh man, you really spit it how... Was that actually the speech you gave? I was like, yeah, that was partially the speech I gave when my father passed away, my pops passed away. And he was like, oh, wow, man, that's deep. He was like, that's beautiful. And I think that you're really good storyteller. Yeah. And so I sat with it and I thought about, because sometimes some truths, some pains are just too much.
Oh, they are.
And so I was like, okay, how can I have the same emotion but make it more palatable for people, right? Because I don't want to put people in a depression state, song 1. So I just had to rewrite it. It took me a couple of minutes because I already knew what I wanted to say was in my heart. And at some point I just got into it. Let's just go. I'm just going to make something up real quick. And then boom, that's the way it came out. And so in essence, it conceptualizes the emotions I felt going up to that podium in front of my family, my friends, and my community. And yes, I speak. I'm a professor for a living, but giving that type of speech was the most difficult public speaking I've ever done in my life. And I just remember crying so much during that time. I don't know how I didn't cry during the speech. I guess I found some humor, some personality in my pops to help me get through it. But that was the whole message of that song, and I wanted to define what Evolving Wings means.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. When even personally for me, whenever I talk about my brother who I lost, and even my aunt and my grandma that I lost as well, when I was back in Mexico, reflecting, just talking to my cousins about them and how they were, they're in their last years and everything, that just gets me so emotional. You know what I mean? Being just even mentioning them, and the more I really talk about them, the more, again, it just kind of comes up to you and you're just like, dang, that you feel just something unlike anything else of just, go ahead.
And that was the entry point.
Yeah.
That I think most of us have had that feeling. And so I wanted it to start off once again like a movie, right? Like things are not always right. Things are not always perfect. That was the element to begin us on this journey.
I took it a little bit like not of a goodbye letter, but a love letter.
Yeah, for sure.
Because you mentioned how there was a lot of things that you wanted to, and this kind of goes with your soul purpose. Like your soul purpose, it's not really materialistic things or physical things. It's those things you can't see. And you mentioned how you have 3 boys and your father taught you so many things and his past was different from yours, but you were gonna, take what you've learned and, pass it on to your kiddos.
That's the one.
Which is absolutely beautiful and is something that we often forget. And we're so based on my sole purpose. I have to do something. Success to our eyes is very, very different. So
success. Yeah, that's the thing. Like you. That's 100% correct. That was the idea in the sense of like I used to think that success and legacy, right, is what if I got handed down a material thing like a house or a bank account of money, right? But then I was like, nah, the legacy. The real legacy, the real richness, the real wealth is how he taught me how to live life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the legacy, and that's what I conceptualized.
Yeah, it's so beautiful to me, and especially in like our Latino community, the heart we in many cases, the relationship or anybody really with their parent is really hard, but we often don't realize that their parenting was really hard too.
It was.
So and so really just like taking what you've really learned and needed and passing it on is the important part. And that's kind of what I got from the beginning.
That's exactly what I was going for, because it's about intergenerational trauma and
intergenerational trauma.
I was going to mention
that's the word.
I was going to mention how I believe you teach that in your classes, and so how you took it into your personal life and really showed it. I'm like, hey, I've heard and I know in my family, things that have happened, and this is exactly what they go through and what they've talked about. And so I found that really like a love letter in a way of like, thank you so much. And it was beautiful. I really like that part.
And it's a perfect segue into track 2, what matters most. So you want, go ahead and share some thoughts on that.
We like I said, this is a movie. To me, in my heart, right? For me, this is my masterpiece. And so we go from that element to like, well, you know what? Keep your head up, because what matters most, right? And a lot of the album is layered. A lot of like the concepts, once again, I didn't create. Some I did, some I did not. But it's like I was reading a lot, like I said, and so I got quotes from here, from there, from all over the place, and there was this quote on like what matters most, And I was like, oh man, I'm gonna make that the hook. That's gonna be we got the intro. That's gonna be the first joint to roll this whole thing out. In the sense of how to uplift people again, is that there's beauty and brilliance in all aspects of who we are in our fabric. In the sense that we don't got to get locked down to our past selves. Right, and no one should have, we shouldn't allow anyone to keep us to our past selves. Is that we should all want to like spread our wings and evolve. And so what matters most is the compass of your soul, what's in your heart, right, and what you do with your heart, and how you treat people with dignity, with respect, with love, and that's the ultimate frequency. And to keep it really, really real, after I had my crisis, I went to the beach in Pacifica with a good friend of mine. And there was a form of a spiritual pathway that was there in I don't know. Could we keep it really real on this radio station? How real could we keep it?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, so for me, there's different forms of medicine and spirituality. I'll just leave it at that, because I make the reference in the song.
Oh, I know it. I know what you're trying to talk.
I'll just leave it
I know
at
what you mean. Okay, I got it. I got it. Yeah.
And for me, it's a respect. It's not just for a specific outcome. It's a spiritual passage,
A spiritual journey.
spiritual.
I know
journey,
exactly what you're talking about.
You know,
Yeah.
and so we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
And so that's why I didn't make any of the songs about that element per se, because I didn't want it to get stigmatized.
No, and yeah, I mean, I don't, again, thank you for sharing that, because again, I also have a cousin of mine who has taken those types of journeys before too, and spiritually, it's intense. It's
really,
intense.
It's really intense, and so
Yeah.
I'm lost, but I'm gonna say okay.
and we'll just leave it at that. And so for me though, the message that I received was there is only oneness, and that made me calm. That like took away all the anxiety. That made me grateful. Made me remind myself of the love I have of my wife and my kid, my family, my community. And so what matters most is already the gratitude that we have for the loved ones, in a sense of if I woke up and the people I love woke up today, that's a great day already. You know. And also I was reading I'm big into Sadhguru, who's a mystic, and his book Inner Engineering has helped me greatly on this journey as well.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for sharing that. Moving into 91 Magnificent.
Yeah.
So I one thing that I just want to say about this song, especially is like the big kind of like, it's kind of like it's a big hype song, right? Or it's got two features on it.
Yeah.
I just want to say that Shay Noir, is that how you say it? Shay Noir. Dang, she killed it.
Yeah.
She did such a good job. Like her verse just like stuck out to me so much when I was listening to this song. I was like, dang, she's good, you know?
Oh, she's amazing.
She's awesome. And also DJ Beatnox.
Yeah.
Also, again, both features on the song were, again, like, wow, stand out artists right there. But I especially liked Shay Noir's verse.
Yeah, definitely. Peace to Shay, DJ Beatnox, and once again to my brother Kid Rated R for picking out the cuts, and we had a DJ Beatnox to do his thing with the scratches and whatnot. And that song, I feel like I don't want to get in a box, but I'll tell you, like 91 Magnificent is a reference to Psalms 91. When I was a kid, my mom used to read me the Psalms, and that's the one that always stood out to me. And I learned how to read and speak Spanish first. And so every time that my mom would read to me, it'd be in Spanish. 91, the Psalm 91 always stood out to me. And so I make references to it on the first verse. And once again, it was just a way of reminding myself that I'm protected by Creator. And so I'm in tune, or on the pathway to be in tune with my indigeneity. And so first, I just got to say this. It's like sangre indígena, herencia mexicana, chicano del alma. You know what I'm saying? That's me. All those elements. All those elements. And so that's why I could rap about something indigenous in the next track or whatnot. But in this one, I wanted to have this focal point. And so, yeah, Shay, I was just a big fan of her music.
Is she local?
No,
here,
she's from Buffalo, New York.
Oh, she's from Buffalo, New York.
Buffalo, New York.
Okay, from the East Coast.
She's a dope MC.
Yeah.
I was really grateful that we could get that done. And DJ Beatnox, and once again, my brother, the Kid Radar, produced it. And so I'm really happy with it.
That's awesome. Yeah. Did you have anything
how
to add?
is it working in collaboration with different artists? Because I think you guys might have different, what would I say? Different ideas, and how do you guys work as a team? That's something that I'm very curious in.
It depends from the beginning. For most of these songs, I think the song was already done, and it was kind of like, I hear her on this song. I hear her on this song, and so that's how that worked out. And a lot of this stuff was happening during the pandemic, so
you're going back and forth with sending verses
emails,
and stuff. Yeah,
exactly.
Notes.
So you
all
guys
that
didn't
stuff.
record in the same studio?
No, not in the pandemic.
Okay.
Nobody was recording, I think, in the pandemic for a while.
And how did you get in contact and have them collaborate? How did you make that connection?
I reached out to her team. For me, I'm always trying to figure out, well, how can I reach out to someone? Is there someone in my network that knows them, that knows somebody? Do they have like a public P.O. box? Do they have like a public email account, email account
for inquiries,
and things of that
stuff,
nature. And so that's how that happened.
Oh, okay. Great.
It's good to know for other, artists here, how do I collaborate and stuff. So I wanted to make sure to cover that.
That's probably a whole other episode.
That's a whole other aspect of collaboration. Because there'd be creative differences as well.
No, there could be. And
that's the word I was looking
creative
for.
Differences, yes.
The one thing I could say right now really quick is that you just have to be upfront and clear about what the expectations are or the outcome is. Because when it's not clear, then it could get like really
messy.
funky.
It could get messy. Yeah.
It's beautiful to work with a team, but it can also be very, very challenging.
Yes.
But I know you have a lot of more featured artists on your album, so I was just curious, like, how did you make that happen? But
I mean, yeah, speaking of more artist features, next track is Summer in the City, which features, the Kid Rated R, as well as Rebecca Noble.
She's an amazing singer that is a good friend of my brother, the Kid Rated R, and so that's how I got tapped in. And so once again, I didn't record with her in the studio either. So a lot of it happened during the pandemic. And
is she also from the East Coast?
No, she's from the Bay.
Oh, she's from the Bay.
And so it was really cool because I was like, oh, I heard the beat, I had the beat, I wrote to it, one verse, and I was kind of like, this has like a summer vibe to it. It was like kicking it with my family in the Mission. When I go see my mom, who still lives in the Mission and whatnot, and like the steps of the front album, it felt like that, just a summer day, a nice, beautiful summer day in the city. And so I was telling my brother, the Kid, I was like, yo, what's up? Can I get a verse? Like, you want a verse? Like, all right. And then so that how I happened. I was really, I think he kills the verse, the whole song. That's just me. You know what I'm saying? It's my project, but it's like, once again, like, remove your ego, and there's like, my light don't shine, don't dim nobody else's light. Nobody else's light dims mine. So when you have that genuine love to see everyone succeed, it just makes everything better. And I think my brother killing that song, and then Rebecca on the hook, and the breakdowns that he did, it just really highlighted the whole element, and I'm grateful for both of them.
Yeah, no, totally. That's a great highlight thing. Like I said, like, the more that you, with your team, especially when making music, when making anything creative, the more that you are all on the same page, you're all supportive of each other, and really, like you said, have that passion behind it all, the more that it's just going to be great for everyone. And the songs, and you're going to hear it through the song, through whatever product you end up delivering. Because like we've been saying, if your ego gets in the way, or just creative differences, all this stuff, then it's going to fall apart. But I'm glad that it's been a pretty smooth process throughout the album in terms of getting your features done and all that. But yeah, Summer in the City, and then moving on to Passion and Purpose.
That song's about Dia de los Muertos. I wrote that first verse, like I said, in 2017, and I had a different hook to it. And sometimes, like, I had a laptop with a lot of lyrics. It broke down. I wasn't able to get into it no more.
Oh, that sucks.
And so I just had segments of that first verse. So sometimes things change, but you know what? They all work out for a specific reason. And so the song played out the way it did. And that's my paying homage to my ancestors, in the sense of like the hook, like we represent when we remember them with love. You know, now that they've transitioned to ancestors. And so I really love that song, and so that's what it means to me.
Okay. Did you want to add anything?
No.
Okay. Moving on. All right. So we're getting into Warrior, the interlude, where I'm featured on it. I'm like, dang, I'm on the album. Funny story about that. I was listening to the album when I was flying back from Mexico. And I remember as soon as I was getting off of the airplane, that song started playing, and I was like, wait, what? I was like freaking out as I was exiting the airplane, because I was like, holy crap, he actually put our interview on the album.
Yeah, because I remember I had asked you for it, right?
Yeah, I thought you were just gonna use like your part of that thing. That's what I was assuming, but then I heard my voice and I was like, oh, that's me.
That was when we had him on the show?
No,
that was when I went over to his presentation called "The Warrior in You" last year,
right?
At College of Marin, where I did that little reel that's on our Instagram page.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, and And I just thought that was just a really well. First of all, thanks for putting that and including my voice on there, because it's just really cool to be able to have like a full circle moment like that. Because when we were recording that interview, I had only met you like twice. I think we hadn't met very very well. I had known of you, and I think we had done an interview with you either before or after that. But point is, I always knew that there was something special about you. You know, you always had this great energy. And after that interview, I remember just editing that interview, and I was just like, dang, like he's just got such a great way of just using your words and just just using your influence for good, right? And it's just, again, it's a perfect segue into the next song, The Warrior in You. So you kind of want to talk about the process of that song?
Oh, that was probably one of the tougher ones to write, to record.
And I think it's also it kind of breaks away from the overall atmosphere you were creating at the beginning of the album, right? Because that's when it starts getting a little bit deeper into the...
And that's the gamble, right? Where what I was talking about earlier. And it's a deep song. It's about wounds. It's about intergenerational trauma. It's about trauma as a kid.
Yeah.
It's about reliving that trauma as an adult. And it's also about hope. It's about resiliency, resistance, beauty, and it's about how you see yourself is more important than the way other people see you. And how you define who you are is more important. And I think that redefining warrior for me was the whole point. It's like, well, you know what? I am a warrior because I need help, and if I'm made to feel a certain negative way for saying I need help, y'all wrong for that. And if I listen to y'all, then I'm wrong for that. And so I gotta just, you know what? No, I do need help.
That's the big takeaway. Like, again, like the interlude, the interview that I had, you perfectly mixed all the messages. Yeah, you set up the messages of the overall song. Because like you said, like I think I remember you calling them like people would call you like a sucker, or like, you know, something that like you're not worth it. Yeah, you're not a real guy. Like, it's just like how all of that is just complete BS. You know what I mean? And that's why that song, The Warrior in You, and that whole overall message is just so beautifully done in this song. And that's definitely a highlight on the album for me as I was listening, because again, it is a complete change of pace, I think, from the rest of the album, like you were saying.
It's more spoken word. You know, it does have an instrumental to it, but it's more spoken word. It's more like free thought, free write sort of vibe. And I just love the way it came out.
Yeah. So unfortunately, we have about 8 minutes left, and I think we've only gotten through half of the album. So we're just gonna kind of try to speed run this as much as we can.
Let's do it.
But Painting Dreams is the next title track, track 8.
We might have to do episode 2, continuation
I know.
or something. Painting Dreams. This is where I begin to introduce my sons. And so we were at the studio, and it was important for me to take my wife, take my kids, all 3 of them, into the studio so they could see this is not easy. This is a lot of passion, a lot of work. And so my baby boy, Santi, was asleep that day. So Emiliano, he says the quote, it's a Van Gogh quote on Painting Dreams and whatnot. He says it, and then him and my son Weetie come at the very end. And the whole song is about betting on yourself. And that once you understand that, then you could really move forward with manifesting your dreams. But the caveat is you have to know what you want exactly, to the very T, to the very feeling of it. And that's Painting Dreams, is that we are all in control of the brush. And so we have to understand we are the painter, we are the director, and we're either doing a great job of directing our life or we're not doing a great job.
Yeah. And next track is Mental Health Exercise, which actually Santi really enjoyed. You want to talk more about that?
Yeah, I think this is the one that talked about the stigmas about, you know, asking for help, and also being a guy asking for help, or a man asking for help.
A man with mental health issues,
mental health, and how I don't remember if you mentioned taking medication in this one. Was it this one?
No,
Or
I don't think so.
No? Or maybe because you said it earlier, but that part where you were talking about how it's not made up. That's what it was. You talked about how it's not something made up. It's something that is really going on, and how asking for help is an option. And so I thought that was really interesting, especially for me, because I had someone in my family commit suicide. And that was really the turning point where my family took mental health seriously.
Seriously, yeah.
But if it weren't for that, I feel like it would have taken us so much longer. And it's unfortunate that that's how we found out that mental health is really an important thing. It shouldn't have taken that unfortunate situation.
It should have been known already. Yeah.
And then I realized, it's because, our generations, our past generations, especially for men, it's like, no, you can't cry. No, you need to push and push and push. But being a guy or a girl, you need to take the time and say, I need to be okay in order for me to work hard.
Most def.
Yeah.
That's the whole point, right? And thank you for sharing that, is that pain could provide somebody else what maybe to avoid or help someone else, so that doesn't happen in their family, in their life, right? And it is unfortunate, and that was the whole idea.
You mentioned suicide here too, right? Remember if I'm going crazy.
No, that was in the Warrior in You.
Okay.
So maybe you're thinking about Warrior in You right now. Yeah.
They're all connected.
I've had replays on 2, but that connection of how you were going through something, and also understanding that part where it's okay to ask for help. And you mentioned it earlier too. It's I'm not weak if I ask for help. I'm actually strong, and that shows that I have the ability to say I need help. And the people who are looking at you like, that's made up or that's not real, they are the ones who are proving otherwise.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really interesting.
So we're down to 4 minutes, but moving forward, Flame of the West. One thing I could this is again another change of pace right here. Flame of the West is definitely like a more hyped up song. Just want to have some quick thoughts on that one.
Really quick. I mean, it was a reminder to myself that, well, first of all, Flame in the West is a reference to Lord of the Rings.
Oh, okay.
It's Aragorn's sword, right? It's a reference to that, but it's also a reference to like my pen, like the way I write. My pen game is the Flame of the West. Like I'm the secret in the West Coast that most people don't know about. Is that my lyrics are sharp, my pen is sharp, and it's not my aura's not like anybody else. And that was me also like being boasting and whatnot a little bit, having some fun with it in a very like subtle or not so subtle way, depending on who heard it or how they took it, right? And so that was the idea with that, but it was also like, there are no lessons. I mean, there are no mistakes. There are no failures. There's only lessons. No. That was the big takeaway from that one.
And moving on to 77. So you want to talk about what the relevance is of that year?
Yeah, 77 is a reference to my pops Monte Carlo, 1977. Candy apple red Monte Carlo with a white top, and the back of the window, it was a Virgen de Guadalupe on the back of it. And so that's where a lot of the hook comes from. People are like, "Oh, did you really have that tattoo on your back?" I'm like, no, it was in the back of the Monte Carlo.
Monte Carlo.
You're an artist. You kind of just play with things a little bit.
Yeah.
And so that's about me growing up and being in my dad's, cruising down the Mission in my dad's lowrider.
And then What's in Your Heart with Sick Jackin'?
Man, Sick Jackin' from the Psycho Realm, Los Angeles. One of the best MCs to ever do it. It was a blessing to be able to combine our arts together on the same track and have this conversation of like, what's in my heart may be different from what's yours because of the way life has played out for me.
Absolutely. And honestly, we're really low on time, but I do want to give we're going to skip a couple of tracks here, but I do want to just say Soul Purpose, the title track with Boca Floja. That's a big song. That's just, I'm so glad that it's been doing so well. You want to just give a shout out quickly too? Big
shout out to Boca Floja, my family, you know what I'm saying? A good friend of mine for allowing me this dream, because to me it's a dream to work with Boca Floja. Yeah. And so I'm grateful for him. I'm grateful for Jordan Wall, who directed the video, the KVR that produced it. I'm grateful to my moms, to my wife, to my kids, to my community, and a big shout out de todo corazón para mi tía Sandra, who is my spiritual guide and who really helped me remind myself of how great I truly am and how it was just a question that she posed that changed my life. But I'll share that another day.
Yeah, well, thank you for your time, Ismael. Again, you can check out his new album, Soul Purpose, on all streaming platforms.
Yep.
And there's also physical copies available out there.
CDs, $10 if you in the SF Peninsula area. If I ship it out, they're going to be shipping it as well.
All right, you heard it here, guys. All right, and make sure to go follow Ismael on his Instagram and social media pages at Evolving Wings.
Evolving Wings 7 IG and Evolving Wings on everything else.
All right. Well, thank you all for watching.